In my last two videos, I went over the steps that I took to rough out and carve these 3 red ruffed lemurs. So now in this video, I'm going to go over all the steps that I take to do the final details, which is burning and painting. So I always like to start with the eyes. I use a skew tip and I go around and outline around the eye, and I'll go very slowly. I'm just trying to continue that shape I already set in with the carving. I'm just cutting in nice and easy at a really low heat, and then I'll go and kind of start adding some details around the eye. I'll find the eyelid and cut that in. I'm almost using the burner as like another carving tool. Next, I switch to a shading tip and I use it to burnish and round the eye. So I start at a really low temperature and I change the angle. So at times you may kind of lose the carving a little bit because my hand gets in the way, but that's because I'm changing the angle so I can round out these eyes. And this is really nice because it's going to give the eyes a really smooth, almost glassy texture. So when I do paint it, it's going to stand out apart from all the fur texture that I'm going to burn in eventually. Switching back to the skew tip, I start accentuating some of the wrinkles and small hairs that are in the face of this lemur. Then I go in and outline the direction of the head hair. This really helps give that illusion that this is a more three-dimensional piece. Remember, this is only a 3/4 of an inch board, so that little illusion and slight change in direction of the hair helps the head look more round. So the next step is to start burning in all the hair on the body. You can see the lines that I've already carved in. That helped me set the direction that the hair is going. Because remember, hair grows in all kinds of different crazy directions, especially on a lemur, where the arm is bent, where the different muscles are. I'm just now using my burner to accentuate those lines I've already carved. And one way I achieve that is I'm constantly turning my hand. It's a little bit hard to see with the video sped up, but I'm either turning my wrist or actually twisting my fingers to get a rounded shape. You don't want hair to all be straight. It looks unnatural. Now, it looks a little trippy with this light on, but you can see all those individual hairs that I went and burnt, and it just helps bring this guy to life. Typically, relief carvings look best when you're looking at them straight on. So one thing I try to do is extend my carving so it goes around to the edge, and then I also do that with the details. This way, when you're looking at it off to the side, it doesn't look all distorted. I'll admit, it still looks better straight on, but this is something I'm working on to improving my craft, and I feel like it's always good to be aware of the things that you want to improve on. So now that the hair is burnt in, I'm starting to look at the texture that I'm going to put in for the vegetation, and that includes these little leaves and twigs, and then I'll eventually get onto the bark. To burn the bark, I'm back with my shading tip at a pretty high heat. It's probably like mid to high, and that's going to give me that dark texture, and I can get in there and kind of burn away some of those fuzzies that I couldn't hit with my tools or sandpaper, and it actually helps me round out things, again, that I just couldn't achieve with the tools. Having that nice burn in there, like I said, gives it good texture, because when you look at bark, some pieces are sticking out. You can kind of have some shadows cast, so it's going to give it that more realistic appearance. So where the branches aren't attached or anchored into another part of the carving, they're a little bit wiggly, and it was really just difficult to carve with the power. I didn't want to snap them, so I'm just using this shading tip at a really high heat and scorching under the leaves, and actually using it to carve out and remove some of the wood. But I gotta be honest, burning all these hairs and bark and texture got me a little crazy, so I figured it was time for a song.
I've been burning all morning, all day long. I'm tired of burning, that's why I'm singing this song. How long must I have to go? I keep burning, pretty baby, and this is all I have to show. Alright, here it is so far.
I'm really excited about the way this is coming out so far. I feel like all that hair texture and bark really brought this carving to life, and I know the painting is just going to bring it to another level. So I'm excited to get started, but Blue, on the other hand, well, he's had enough of my antics. I like to start painting the background first, so I'm starting with these trees, and I'm using a gray wash. You don't have to use a heavy paint. A lot of that color and texture is already there from when I burned it, so now I'm going around to the trees and I'm varying my color. If you look in a forest, the trees are all going to look different. Even if they're the same species, they might have some variations to color. So I'm using different bases of grays and tans to give that variation in the background. Red ruffed lemurs live on the Mashwala Peninsula in Madagascar, and it's a rainforest. So if you ever look at a rainforest, there's a ton of green. A lot of those trees are just covered with moss, so I figured why not use some actual real moss. So I found this at the craft store. It's preserved, so it's not going to go bad. It's going to retain its color. So I just broke a couple pieces. I got some glue. I guess I could use a Q-tip, but for this I just used my finger, and I just pressed the glue onto the tree, and then I'll take a little clump of the moss and just press it in. It was a pretty good process. I probably should look at some videos how people do this differently, but I think it worked out really well, and it gave it a cool, more lifelike effect, and it was actually kind of fun to do. I didn't go into detail how I painted the leaves, but it was varying shades of green, taking into account for shadows and highlights. But one thing I did want to show is how I painted this fruit. Now, I don't know the name of this fruit. It's kind of hard to pronounce, so I'm not even going to try and butcher it. But when it is ripe, it turns a brighter yellow. So I'm giving this fruit kind of like varying stages of ripeness. So some's going to have some more green, some will be more yellow. But probably my favorite part of this carving is this lemur up top who's reaching for this fruit. So this one's going to be nice and yellow, nice and ripe, like a lemur would be picking out the choicest fruit to eat. With all the vegetation painted, it's time to start painting these lemurs. I use a black base coat because it does a few things for me. One, it accentuates all the shadows that I've carved in. Two, basswood has a tendency to drink up paint, so when I go in with the red colors, I don't have to use as many coats, which would potentially make the details muddied and not look as crisp. Also, the bellies and face for these lemurs are black, so having that black already down is pretty helpful. So you'll see as I painted these eyes, I accidentally made them a little googly. So I just wanted to show you that, sometimes you make mistakes with painting, and that's okay. You can always repaint it. The first layer that I add is this rusty brown color, and that's going to help go in on all the shadows that I've carved in. It's just going to accentuate the shadows, and then I can go in with the color that I want the lemurs to be, which is this tannish red. And you could see as I put the paint on, it just soaks right into the wood, so it takes about 3 coats. I do use a very thin acrylic wash. I don't like the paints to be too thick. And once the color's where I want it, I start using a dry brush technique, and I'm using like a tannish white. It's not pure white because that would be too contrasting with and almost looking unnatural. So I just use like a nice cream color, and I'll go around and accentuate some of the highlights. I learned that one characteristic that scientists use to study these lemurs is this white banding around their tail, and that's how they help differentiate who's who. So So I'm still using that white now to highlight the tail and go back in on some of the fur that needs to be touched up. So now I'm back to these googly eyes, and I'm just repainting them with white just to kind of cover up the mistake, so I can go back in again with more yellow in a little bit. And I'm going to use that same white and dry brush around his face, and you can start to see as I dry brush, there's still that black behind, but the white's going to bring out some of those highlights, and he kind of has like a gray face, so as the white dries, it won't be as pronounced, and it'll just help accentuate all the texture that's been carved in. With a final touch up of a little bit of yellow, I'm ready to put in the pupils. So I'm using that really small brush and very carefully just making a round little dot. With that last dot in the eye, I can officially say the painting of this carving is completed. I had a really great time creating this carving. It was really a fun process for me. I took a lot of time researching these creatures. I had never heard of them before. This customer requested it, so I wanted to make sure I captured their personality. They are very hungry. They're always looking for food. They're acrobatic, so I wanted to have this guy hanging upside down. They also have these really long tails, so I wanted to make sure I showcased that. And they're kind of an elusive creature. So this guy in the bottom, how alert he is, that's how they are. They're always looking for danger and aware of what's going on around them. So I think I captured them pretty well. I hope you enjoyed these videos. Maybe you learned something. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And thanks again for watching.